from time to time. Genesis, she's going to be chiming in. So before we actually get into the presentation, tell us a little something about you. Like, where do you come from? Who are you? You know, so the listener audience have like somewhat of a bird's eye view about you.
Yeah, no problem. Praise the mighty Yah. I'm from New York originally. I'm from Long Island, New York, and grew up in Long Island, New York, Freeport, and then I moved out to Ohio, where I learned about the truth of the mighty Yah in Cincinnati, and I was taught by Moreh Elisha ben Yisra'el, who was the elder and head teacher of the House of Yisrael in Cincinnati. And this was over 20 years ago now. And I've been teaching in the House of Yisrael for almost 18 years. Moreh Elisha made me a Moreh uh, about, I guess, about 16 years ago, 17 years ago. He made me a Moreh. And I've taught in the House of Israel of Atlanta and Cincinnati. And then I moved out to Philly and I went back to New York and now I'm here in Houston. But I've been teaching the word of the Creator, of the Most High, this whole time, spreading the message that we need to gather ourselves together to serve the Creator and stop following the ways of our enemies.
Absolutely, absolutely. I hear that you brought up the late Moreh Elisha ben Yisrael, powerful, powerful elder in our community. Man, Moreh Elisha, you know, he was one that really deconstructed, you know, Christianity, and he was one of the very first elders that I seen like openly debated different scholars as it
Mm-hmm.
pertained to were as Yisrael made the late elder continue to rest in completeness within the Azulegic world of existence and pure will. I also
Hallelujah.
see that you came to the same school as famous hip hop artist King Malachi. You know what I'm saying? Are you familiar
Yeah.
with King Malachi, right?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah. So you know, he was an understudy of Moreh Elisha as well. Um, so let's get into it.
Yes,
So
sir.
said, you know, you came into the truth. Give us a brief synopsis how you know you like before you get into that a little bit about you know your childhood background when it comes to spirituality, religion, culture.
Mm-hmm.
How did you grow up as in New York? And matter of fact, shout out to EPMD. You come out of Long Island. I think
Mm-hmm.
Rakim from Long Island
Yeah,
too.
Rock
So
Caps from Long Island, EPMD, Eric Sermon, Keith Murray, Buster
yeah,
Rhymes, man, um,
mhm,
on and on. Strong Island,
absolutely.
you know.
Yeah. So a lot of a lot of famous cats come from out of Long Island. So give us a little bit about your upbringing, you know, and where your family was at spiritually, culturally.
Yeah, no problem. Yeah, I grew up my parents raised us as Baptists in the church, the Black Baptist Church. Um, my parents they weren't big church goers. Especially my father wasn't a big church goer. My mother was the one that was more into it, but they didn't make us do much in the church. But that's how they were raised, and that's how we were raised. And I stepped away. I stopped believing in Christianity when I was probably 13 or 14 years old. I realized that was a bunch of crap. And then I went on my spiritual journey from thenceforth. The first thing I came into on my own was a 5%er, Nations of the Gods and Earths. I became a 5%er, what they call God Body, probably when I was around 17 years old. And I studied with the gods. And, you know, acquired knowledge in that way, learned supreme mathematics, supreme alphabet, 120 lessons and things in that manner, and dibbled and dabbled in it, you know, and then I moved on to do other things, study various spiritualities, African spirituality, Egypt, Kemet, the Gilgamesh, uh, Quran, you know, the Kabbalah, you name it, I studied it, you know, and then by the time I was in college and I met people that was uh, keeping the Torah, I thought I knew about it, but I didn't. And when I grab hold to it, then I seen that that was the truth I was looking for all along. You know, but I've been in pretty much every school of spiritual thought you can deal with.
Okay, absolutely. Absolutely.
Hmm.
So I see that through your process, you was traveling in search of self, like many of us. And so the listening audience will know when he said the late Moray, Elisha ben Yisrael made him a Moray. In the Hebrew culture, Moray is an intensified student, also teacher. Okay, so everybody know the late Moray Elisha made him a Moray a teacher. And that's definitely an honor from somebody like the late Moray Elisha. And I'm going to get into that because Moray Elisha was hard as now. You know
Oh,
what I'm saying? So I definitely want to get into, just learning from this powerful elder because, where we come from, we sat under elders and like this generation that's coming up now, they more or less learn on social media.
right,
Whereas though when we were coming up in Israel, we sat under elders.
right.
Um, Now you're in college and you're learning about Torah and you're hearing this for the first time in a sense of how it should have been presented to you. More or less, you was probably reading it more or less just to have a form of knowledge, but you didn't have the understanding. Um, how did you connect with this Torah? How did you start to identify as being an Israelite? Many of us, we come through listening to Deuteronomy 28, reading Babylon and Timbuktu, things like that. How did it resonate in your spirit that you was an Israelite?
Yeah, no doubt. Yeah, I was like I said, I did a lot of studying. I studied a lot of things: Black culture, African American history, African history. So I was very into just the studies of history before I came into the knowledge. I was into Black history. I knew about Black history beyond what they teach you in the schools and things in that manner. So when I started reading the Torah, I started connecting the dots like this is about us. This is about our people. I could see that that was about our people. So when I came to Deuteronomy, the 28th chapter, it was clear as day to me. The knowledge the Creator had already endowed me with to be able to understand what we went through as a people historically, how all the things that Deuteronomy 28 goes over, for me, it just was the information that was missing from the history books. You understand? And it was easy for me to put that together. So that's really how I was able to understand the word of the Most High the way I was, because He really prepared me to be able to understand who I was before I actually started reading His book. He had me go into the various schools and get this knowledge, and then once I saw it in the Torah, it made it plain and made it straight.
Okay. So now you were saying that you met some people in college that were Israelites. Were they a part of the house of Yisra'el? These
Yeah.
people that you met in college, and they led you to Moray Elisha.
Yes. Yes.
Okay. Tell us about your first encounters with Moray Elisha and your progress.
Yeah. Well, like you said, Alicia was hard, man, and ironically, when I first met Alicia, one of my brothers, he brought Maury Alicia up to our campus, and I went to Central State University near Dayton, Ohio, and he brought Maury Alicia up to speak. And at the time that he did that, I was not seeking to see. I wasn't reading or, you know, on that path to be a Hebrew. I was still just in my search and seeking and study mode. And so when Alicia came up there, I I act like I thought I knew all about, Black Israelites, growing up in New York and seeing them on the corner and things in that manner was was an everyday occurrence. When you were in Harlem and things like that, we saw them all the time. So the initial rhetoric that I heard Alicia speaking, I really paid no mind to. I was like, man, I heard all this before. And I ended up debating Maury Alicia, kind of, called myself debating him while he was speaking at the college. He embarrassed me, of course, completely embarrassed me. But but once I actually started getting into the scriptures and I learned who I was, I went to my brother that brought him and I asked him, I said, hey, the elder. Take me to go see this man that you brought to us at that time. And that's how I got to go see Maury Alicia in Cincinnati, the guy that brought him to our school. I traveled with him to Cincinnati to go to a Shabbat service and hear Maury Alicia teach, and it was on from there.
Hallelujah. Hallelujah. Because I know he used to do he used to have the conferences.
Yeah,
He had different, he was a part of different conferences because my first introduction to the late Morey Elisha was through the Jerusalem Chronicle newspaper
yeah,
because for 5.5 years I was a contributing columnist for the Jerusalem Chronicle newspaper. So that's how I got in contact with him and also through, Prince Kaz and all that. So that's
yeah.
how I was able to, get involved. So give us a brief synopsis on the atmosphere of the Israelite community out of the House of Israel in Cincinnati, because one of the things that you brought up, Silicon, that's very important to me
Mhm,
is the first impression of an Israelite is what you see on the street corner,
mhm.
where was identified as the One West camps, because most times, when people come into Israel or they hear about the Israelites, the first thing they think about is those on the street corner. Could you give some of the differences that you seen coming out of the house of Israel versus what you were seeing on the street corner?
Yeah, it was pretty interesting, amazing for real, because growing up, the Israelites we seen on the street corner, it was just, when you're a kid and you're living in New York and you're not of that, you don't know what it is. And all as a kid, all I saw was these guys on the corner with these pictures of JC, and they was talking crazy about him. And as a kid, you're like, man, who is these? These guys are crazy. And then until you get some knowledge, and you're like, oh, okay, that's what they was dealing with. But my perspective of Israelites was brothers on the corner hollering about the black man and 400 years. But when I came into the knowledge and I learned what was really going on, then you learn that there's different camps, different organizations, different schools of thought, just all the differences that you learn about. And the thing about being with Alicia and learning from Alicia is that he was a unique teacher. He didn't shy away from debating. He was just as strong as or stronger than anyone you would meet in that type of realm. And as they say today, Alicia was ready for all the smoke, wanted all the smoke, gave all the smoke, and I as a young person, as a young man, I was ready for all the smoke. I thought I was anyway, and I was ready to give all the smoke. And so his type of teaching, his style, and his what he was doing fit well with what I was about, and I went for it. And learning who the One West was, as they call him, and things in that manner, and knowing the true history of where it all comes from, you know, my historical perspective, and a knowledgeable historical perspective, I see where we all came from, and I see how divided everybody is today. But I was able to really get an understanding that we've been, splintered due to following after things that aren't even the truth. But Alicia's teachings was great preparation to see, you know, where everything come from and how you can match it all up with the scriptures. If that answers your
It's
question.
very, it was perfect. It was perfect. Again, may Elder Elisha's memory continue to be amongst us, because we know in Devarim, or Deuteronomy chapter 32, verse 7, it tells us to, to seek the path of our fathers and go to our Zakwanim, or our elders, that they may tell us. So it's very important that I always make mention and give accolades to the elders that
Yes.
came before us. A lot of people don't know the foundation of the Israelite culture in the United States. Many lives were taken. Here's like a prime example. In 1902, there was a man by the name of Prophet Frank Smith
Mm-hmm.
that started what is known as Temple Elohim out in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, in an area known as Homewood. And you still have to this day more um, Elion ben Yisra'el that runs it. And because he was teaching former black slaves that they were Israelites, you're Gentiles, they literally in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania in 1902 lynched him to death and set his body on fire. To
Mm-hmm.
say all that him and countless others have lost their lives teaching about this culture. So it's
Right.
very important to keep alive those that came before us. So this is why I'm focusing on more Elisha and the
Mm-hmm.
impact that you and also the brothers and sisters out in Cincinnati. Give a shout out to the House of Israel out in Cincinnati.
Praise the
So
mighty Lord.
now, yeah, you're now you're finding out who you are reading Deuteronomy or Devarim chapter 28, Vayikra, Leviticus, the 26th chapter, all throughout the Tanakh. You're finding these historical prognostications, these prophecies that are identifying a specific people.
Right.
But for a second, step outside Tanakh briefly, and let's speak historically. Not to say that the Tanakh isn't historical, because it is, but for the layman and even the scholar that might beg to differ, um, did your teacher, More Elisha, and also through your own research, discover the Israelite connections in Africa? And are there tribes in Africa that's identifying themselves as Israelites? Could you give us some historical analysis of that?
Yeah. Oh, that's beautiful. The thing about Maury Alicia, like I said, he wanted all the smoke, was ready for all of it, and he didn't shy away from where people might think that they're not strong at. Alicia, when I came into the knowledge, when I came into the House of Israel, as you mentioned, this restoration of the sacred laws of the Most High conferences that Maury Alicia started, and when I came in, it was right when the House of Israel was about to have another conference, but this particular conference they were having was going to be in Washington, D.C. And the point of this conference was to go to Washington, D.C. and proclaim, before the world essentially that we are the children of Yisra'el, that Yah is our only Elohim and only Savior, and that the Most High is the truth. And Maury Elisha called this gathering and this event the World In Gathering of the Children of Yisrael. And what he did was, what's that?
Not to cut you off, not to cut you off, so everybody know. You might have other Israelites that did this later, but documented on record, Moreh Elisha was the first one to do this. Continue.
Yes, he was. This is 20 years ago, and then and you was around at that time, and we went to Washington D.C. and he called this the World Ingathering of the Children of Israel. And one of the things he did was he reached out to Hebrews around the world, and what he was able to do was bring Hebrews from Africa, like the Limba. And at the time, the head of the Limbas, really the mayor of the city and the representative and delegate for the Limbas at that time, was a man named Samuel Moeti, who's passed away now. He came to Washington, D.C. and spoke. And you'll find this on our YouTube pages and our website. You'll find the recording. Samuel Moeti came. We had Igbo. We had Ashanti. And we had representatives of these nations there proclaiming with us that they knew and that they were Hebrew. They told us the traditions they followed that they found were right in the Torah when they didn't even know it at the time. And then they were able to learn that it was in the Torah and they were doing it. Circumcision on the 8th day, eating kosher, as they say, eating clean, no swine, no catfish, no shellfish and things in this manner, no blood, separating their women. So they were right there in their ingrained in their culture, and the things that they were doing is the Torah. The Ashanti, historically speaking, as you're asking, when I met Rudolph Windsor, for instance, I met Rudolph Windsor at this event that I'm telling you about, and he was selling his book From Babylon to Timbuktu. Well, Babylon to Timbuktu has been a book out since the 1970s. And my mother had From Babylon to Timbuktu on her library shelf. I saw the book growing up, you understand? And so I was aware of the historical implications of the children of Yisrael, even outside of what we say the Holy Scriptures, people that are looking for validation of the Hebrew culture and faith in the historical references and looking for the historicity of these things. Well, we were able to not only meet the people, but we were able to find various historical documents and writings by various people about our people. And they, a lot of times the African spiritualists and people that follow African spiritualism like to say that our great teachers, our great elder teachers like Sheikh Anta Diop or the brother that wrote from Babylon, not Babylon, but the brother that wrote They Came Before Columbus, his name escapes me right now. The brother that wrote Ivan Van Sertima. Ivan Van Sertima, Dr. Henry Clark, they say that you might hear them criticize the Bible, but they use the scriptures. Ivan Van Sertima, one of them, he has a book. He was an editor in a book that was discussing the African origins of the Western Hemisphere and the African origins of the Western civilizations. In that book, he references Hebrew culture, Hebrew events, wars between Syria and the children of Yisrael as actual historical events. And so we were very much tapped and in tune with the various different people that have been scattered throughout the four corners of the earth, as the scriptures let us know, that prove that we are the Hebrews, and they are in what the continent that's called Africa and Asia and South America, and we're very influential in these places.
That's very interesting that you would bring up them scholars. For a point of reference for the listening audience, I would like to read a couple of quotations from them scholars that you mentioned. One, I want to read something that Sheikh Anta Diop said. He wrote something called Pre-Colonial Black Africa on page 233. This is coming from Sheikh Anta Diop, or some pronounce Diop. He says, according to Tariq el-Fatah, an Israelite minority also lived in the bent of the Niger region in Tamdarma and had made a speciality of cultivating vegetables, water with fresh well water instead of river water. Now that's very important. And what I'm doing is, when the Moray is giving us the information about the historicity of us being Israel, I'm just validating what he's saying through these same Afrocentric scholars that the Black conscious community respects. Now, Sheikh Anta Diop, or Diop, said, according to Tariq el-Fatah, Tariq el-Fatah was an eyewitness in 1652 in Timbuktu. And he's saying that there were Israelites in this region, right?
Yes.
And then you mentioned about Dr. John Henry Clark. And I found that very interesting. And Dr. John Henry Clark's in the introduction to Alfred J. Butler's book, The Arab Conquest of Egypt in the Last 30 Years of the Roman Dominion. He says Roman exploitation, taxation, and ruthlessness caused a lot of the original Africans in North Africa to move further into the body of Africa. The question is often asked, what happened to North Africa's Black population? This is part of the answer. So Dr. John Henry Clark, in the introduction to the Arab conquest of Egypt in the last 30 years of the Roman dominion, he's saying out of his mouth that these original North Africans pushed deeper into the body of Africa. Now, one might say, well, he didn't mention Hebrews. He didn't say anything about that. Well, if you go to Dr. John Henry Clark's book, Notes for an African World Revolution, Africans at the Crossroads, on page 276, he says this: there is a need now to study the migration of the Israelites after 70 AD, when the Romans destroyed their temples and started the dispersal of the Israelites of that day. Where indeed did they go? There is some evidence that some of them migrated south into the body of Africa. So now we got Dr. John Henry Clark out of his mouth saying that Israelites went into West Africa. We have Sheikh Anta Diop quoting Tariq el-Fatah, who was an eyewitness in 1652 in Timbuktu, saying in the region of Tamdarma, there was a minority of Israelites that specialized in cultivating vegetables in well water instead of river water, right? And then we also got on page 76 in Yosef A. Ben Yokanayan's book, African Origins of the Major Western Religions. He breaks down that in 115 CE, there was a war in Sarentia, and that the Romans started to push the Israelites into West Africa, and they started to amalgamate with the indigenous populations that were there and wind up getting caught up in the transatlantic slave trade. So now we talk about three powerful scholars within the Black conscious community: Sheikh Anta Diop, or Sheikh Anta Diop, Dr. John Henry Clark, and Dr. Yosef A. Ben Yokanayan. All three of these scholars are saying that the Israelites did migrate into West Africa. So if the Israelites migrated into West Africa, naturally, we have to not just assume, but through logic, that Israelites also came on the slave ships. So,
Exactly.
I'm glad that you brought that up, but continue where you left off. I just wanted to add that in there to give like a historical record as to
Right.
what you're saying. Like you're just saying these scholars, but I wanted to go into the sources and references of these scholars where out of their own mouth they're saying that the Israelites did migrate into West Africa and got caught up in the transatlantic slave trade.
Oh yeah.
Continue on.
Oh no, that was beautiful. That was beautiful. Great interjection for what you brought forward to bring some tangible proof to what I was saying, because I don't remember the name of the books. So that was good. But I know, years ago I studied all of that and wrote it in a lot of papers that I presented. But the only thing else that I wanted to say about that was even in our Black conscious community should know this. But one of the things that I found very interesting was nations like the Ashanti, because if there's the controversy that Hebrews aren't real people, or they don't really exist, or there's no historical evidence of Hebrews in Africa, the Ashanti people, they get their name from the Holy Scriptures. The Ashanti people come from the Ashan in Hebrew, in the Hebrew Scriptures. That's the people of the smoke. That's what the Ashan is, the people of the smoke. Ashan is the Hebrew name, and T is their Bantu addition, and T means people of. Ashan is the people of Ashan, and Ashan is a city of a priest in the cities of Yehuda. And these were the Ashanti. And not only this, but the leader of the Ashanti people in West Africa, in Ghana, would wear the breastplate, 12 stones, and would wear the breastplate. And this is factual, I think they might still do that. And not only that, they sit on a stool, which in their culture, they call it the stool of Moses. This is what they call it. And one of the reasons I love that addition is because my mother, who did family genealogical research on our family, who she picked it up from my grandfather, her father, who did genealogical research, and this is before ancestry.com and all that stuff. They did this, and they were able to find that their origins coming out of West Africa is of the Ashanti on my mother's side. So this is something that not only I was able to see in text, but it was also passed down from my family.
So I have a question. When it really comes down to West African tradition, you have the Hebrew Israelite, understanding, but then you also have the religions of the tribes that existed there. So, so how do you correlate the traditions like the E5, A5, Voodoo, and traditions like that to Hebrew Israelite traditions? How do you correlate that?
Well, where does Ifa, Vodun, where do they get their traditions from?
Okay, so what do you feel?
Well, I asked that question in the sense of, because one thing I know about Yoruba, one thing I know about even Igbo and Ashanti traditions, though they seem to be different than Hebrew traditions, if you do digging, they are coming from the same source. It's the same situation that you'll find today in Black Americans, and you got whole families and whole communities of Black Americans that keep laws they don't even know why they keep them, and it's because that they're just keeping the traditions of their ancestors.
So here's another question. So when it really comes down to religion in the Hebrew sense, uh, a lot of like things would like demonize like a tradition like Ifa. they would say that would be considered witchcraft. However, you have things like Kabbalah that are very close in similarity. If you were to look based on even the interviews I've done with some of the people that Prince has like brought to me, they will show that okay, even Kabbalah, I think it's called Qabala, Kabbalah, has some of the same tenets as Ifa. So is so you have like the Torah, but then you have an underlying deeper mysticism behind the Torah. Would you say that those mystical schools are the thing that connects it all, or where would you find the connection to Ifa in like?
Uh, well, for instance, in the Holy Scriptures, in the Torah, if a man has what is called in the Torah, the spirit of jealousy comes upon him, and for his wife, and the spirit of jealousy comes upon him because he has this feeling that she has done some evil and stepped out on him. What they're supposed to do is go to the priest, and she is supposed to swear before the priest that she has not done any of this evil before her husband. And the priest is supposed to give her this water from the sanctuary that has dirt from the sanctuary in the water. And when she drinks the water, if she was telling the truth, then she will become fertile and they will bear seed. But if she was lying, then what happened to her, Prince? What happened to her, Mighty Hebrew? If she's lying,
her internals burst.
yeah, her stomach would swell, and that's why they bursting, and her thigh would rot. Now, if you take that to a Catholic, they'll say, "Oh, that's voodoo." You take that to any Christian church, they'll call that voodoo. You take that to any ignorant Hebrew, they'll call that voodoo, not knowing that all this so-called mysticism and all these things, that's priestly things. The priest did things that the other people just didn't do. We're not allowed to do certain things. And so if you're not aware of, if we're not aware of the Torah and what it really is saying, then they might think that this is witchcraft. They might think that this is what you would call mysticism. When we wanted to know an answer from the priest didn't have to go and study like a rabbi and do all of this kind of thing. The priest, when we had our kingdom set up, would just go and ask the question, and these shining orbs would come from his breastplate and give him the answer. So to the unlearned, that's mysticism. But for somebody like myself, when I see things in African spirituality that looks very similar to the Torah, I know where the origins are coming from. Also, today, of course, and through the mixing of cultures, there are things that are unclean according to the laws of the Most High. But when you're talking about dealing with our people and why are we more the same than we are different, we're dealing with things that we just don't have knowledge of today. And we're dealing with things that people aren't being taught about. They're not being taught about how spiritual intact the word of the Creator is. The Kabbalah is just something formulated out of Judaism, trying to make sense of our normal way, especially dealing with our priests.
Hallelujah, hallelujah. You answered that brilliantly and perfectly. See, I already know that a lot of people don't know that you're very astute in different African customs and spiritualities and things like that. And I'm glad that you tackled that real easy. And that's very interesting that you speak about the drinking of the bitter waters, which we know the ashes from the temple.
Yeah.
And when you actually go to the Ruba and the Igbo, which we know the Yoruba and the Igbo, they're the same people. We know
Yeah.
that. Besides
Mm-hmm.
demarcation, but they also have that similar tradition. You know what I'm saying? And one of the good books that you can get on that is Hebrewisms of West Africa.
Yes.
And inside that book, it speaks about drinking of the bitter waters. And and you see even amongst the Igbo themselves, they let you know that this understanding goes back to Levitical priests. So that was definitely a good thing that you brought up. Now,
Great.
here's something I want to ask.
So, but hold on.
I want
Okay,
to ask
I had okay. Let me let you ask your question. I ask now.
you. One of the things that we're seeing right now is the rise of, which I feel as though is very, very important. We're seeing Israel now rise from the four corners of the earth. I mean, there's no movement like no other right now. You
Right.
see Israelites all over the world gathering and returning back to the land of the promise from East Africa to Northeastern Africa, miscalled the Middle East. You're seeing leaders such as my late master teacher, Prince Asiel, Ben Ami. You're seeing all these different leaders that rose. You see what's going on in Demona, these Israelite, the community I started in Tanzania. What is the next move on the chessboard that you see us from a nation to a civilization? What do you what do you see that's going on right now in the state of the world and its interconnections with the gathering of Israel as a civilization? And when I say Israel, I mean the 12 tribes. I'm not talking about that. You know what I'm saying?
Yes, sir. Yeah. Beautiful question. And on surface, of course, it looks like another black movement, another religious movement on surface. And some people take it as that. But the difference between the current and upcoming surge of the awakening of the children of Yisrael is it's never happened before. And so
That,
if it's happening now, and it's not just happening at an arbitrary moment, it's happening when the king of Babylon, if I could quote Isaiah the 14th chapter, is declaring his tabernacle on the glorious holy mountain, if I could quote Daniel the 11th chapter. And what I mean by that is this president, who's now the president elect again in the United States, when he first came into office, he declared that the United States embassy would be in Jerusalem, which was controversial for the world community because these Edomites wanting to have to call Jerusalem their capital was an affront to the Palestinian community. But you have that happening. You have the upheaval of wars going on in the state of Israel and in the so-called Middle East as well. You have the alliances that are becoming more solidified between Russia and China and Ethiopia and Libya and Iran. But this is exactly out of the book of Ezekiel, the 38th and 39th chapter. The allies of Gog and Magog are mentioned. Persia, that's Iran,
right,
Ethiopia, Libya, China, and all in Gomer, because people think, oh, Germany is not with, but they will be. Germany gets all their oil from Russia. And you'll see Germany will join with Russia. Belarus is with Russia, and they're Germans. So you'll have in their alliances are becoming solidified. People are running around talking about BRICS because of the BRICS nations, but that's only a monetary system. Their alliances are being solidified, and because this is happening at the same time that this is happening, the children of Israel are starting to lift up their head. So there's no coincidences in the earth when you're dealing with the word of the Most High. And because that's happening, it's going to be a situation in which we are going to see our people join together in a manner that we have never seen before.
Mm. That's definitely, and you know why? Because like you brought up the 37, 38, and 39th chapter of Ezekiel, and we had not too long ago Adon Yehoshaphat ben Yisra'el, editor and founder of Jerusalem Chronicle newspaper, and he was breaking down the second chapter and the seventh chapter of Daniel, when we see the image of the man and the four beasts, and we know that the first represents the gold, which is 586 BCE. We're talking about the Babylonian Empire under Nebuchadnezzar the first. And then you see the second, which is silver, which was the Medo-Persian Empire. And we see that was roughly around 444 BCE with King Cyrus the Great. And we also see this in the movie 300, when we see Xerxes, sending servants to talk to the Spartans. And it's funny that these servants were in fact Israelites on that movie, right? We seen that. And then you see now the bronze is rising in power under Alexander, son of Philip of Macedonia, roughly around 340 BCE, because I think he died roughly 332 BCE, somewhere around that time. We can see that during the Maccabee. When we read in the book of Maccabees, we see that he passes away, and then you see this rising of the Seleucid kings. We see that. And then we also see the Roman Empire, which is the iron, roughly around 146 BCE. We're seeing that. We're seeing Mark Antony, the alliance with Cleopatra, and how the Ptolemy, because remember, when Alexander, son of Philip of Macedonia, died, his kingdom was broken down into 4 sections. And this is where you get the Ptolemy and all these people. And then we see the fall of the Roman Empire through the barbarian tribes, the Visigoths, the Vandals, and all these guys, the Goths. They come in, break down the Roman Empire into 10 kingdoms, which became Western Europe. And in the book of Daniel, we see that this little horn or this beast man comes out, and out of these 10 toes, that's mixed with clay and iron. And we know that the iron is the Roman Empire, and the clay, those that are in opposition to the Roman Empire, because clay can't mix with iron, as the elder was breaking down to us. So these 3 toes were plucked, and historically, we know that that toe or that horn was the United States that will wear out the side. And the 3 that was plucked was Britain, because we had that Revolutionary War, and then we see the French-American War with the Louisiana State Purchase and all that. We see that, and Napoleon, all that. And then we see the Spanish-American War with the Alamo, the taking the control of California. So the 3 were plucked: Britain, France, and Spain. So it's not a coincidence that Daniel prophesied this. So now we know, and we're identifying who this little horn is. What is the next move for the children of Israel right now? What should we be doing at this present time? We know that the head of the harlot is the United States, hands down. There's no escape. So what do we do now as a people as we move forward into developing our own governmental structure?
We got to gather ourselves together. That's bottom line. We got to gather ourselves together and come together as a people and as a nation. And that's why it's important that we have these type of discussions, even when people are asking about the differences between African spiritualism and the children of Israel. We got to gather ourselves together and see that we're more alike than we are different. We got to see the things that we do have in common, and we got to follow after the truth and leave our enemies alone. Our enemies, as you said, been wearing us out, and we got to gather ourselves together. And it's better for us to come together as a people and look at what works and what doesn't work, and move forward as a people, as one people. We got to, get the doctrines and the theories and the ideologies of the Ifa, of the Igbo, of the Ashanti, of the Kemetic folks, of whoever. Let's come together. Let's look at them and let's see what works. Because if you know the word of the Creator, you know what's going to work. But if you know the truth, you're not afraid to put it all on the table. And I would rather put it all on the table with our people and come together so we can be together, because the nations are gathering themselves together, as you see, and they're gathering because they know that they're about to fight. And we the only ones trying to get cars instead of getting ready to fight.
That's one of my biggest plights. Even when I did a debate against the Torah Knights, and the whole objective when I did that debate was not necessarily to really debate, but more like say that as much as you guys have not looked at this, right? You you've only been like looking at the Torah, but there's other stuff out there. You haven't looked at it, right? And people are getting power from these things, right? They're able to predict certain stuff. Other people are using these things to be able to have a leg up against you. They're using your own stuff. Because I'm in Texas, right? And you're in Texas, right?
Yes.
If you go on Google.com, type in botanicas. How many botanicas do you see in Houston? How many do you see in Dallas? And all of those are like Latin owned botanicas. And they're all using Yoruba traditions to get a leg up. You know what I'm saying? So you might say, oh, that's witchcraft. Oh, that's this, that, the other. But the bottom line is, why would Latino people circumvent any of their tribal traditions and go straight to a Yoruba tradition in order to become powerful? There must be something to it, right? So when you actually get into mathematics and like what the African traditions were about is science and mathematics. These were like some of our first scientists, mathematicians. When you think about the divination systems, it's really based on science and mathematics. It's not as spooky as people think. Mm-hmm. The whole system is not spooky dooky. It's just straight up math. When an egg breaks open, it breaks up into 2, then 4, then 16, then 256. And that's how life comes into play. And That is what you get your major and minor Odu. All right. And then from there, they're able to divine from that. So my biggest thing was that, when I was debating a person that's Torah only, what they did was they tried to take the Torah and make it esoteric, because they call themselves the Torah Knights, right? Mm-hmm. Now, if you're only going through Torah, then everything that he did in that debate that I did with him would be against the law, because that's mysticism, that's sorcery, right? But he tried to say, oh, okay, well, this means that, and there's a deeper meaning. Okay, well, then if you're going to say that, you're getting more into Kabbalah than Torah. So then it's like, so the biggest thing I have to say is that the closest thing to like the Ifa and Fa and Voodoo would be like the mystical systems like the Kabbalah. Then in Egypt, the Q or the K Bala. And this is even based on what even Prince has brought to me. Prince Hebrew, Mighty Hebrew. What I've been seeing in these interviews, it's like, dude. So there is a system that exists in the Israelites, but you have certain people that says, you know what, that's witchcraft, that's evil, that's this, that, the other. So how do you move forward and say, okay, we need to like all come together when people are going to say that, you know what, what you're doing is evil. It's witchcraft. It's sorcery. So how do you move forward in that situation?
Well, and on my end, what we do is we teach the truth. And once you teach the truth, then I don't really mind what somebody thinks is witchcraft or evil or whatever, because I'm going to teach you the truth. You see in my background, you see two twos and my body's covering up at 8. But there's a reason for that. We know about order in math and numbers and how things are ordered and how time and purpose are very intricate in the word of the Most High. And I don't tell people to practice any so-called mystical school, but as I said earlier, the word of the Most High has a quite obvious school of priests. There's a priesthood. Not only is there a priesthood, the whole Hebrew thought is different than what anybody's talking about. Kabbalah is Jewish. It's Judaism. It's their understanding of how we do things. They didn't know what we were doing, so they created Kabbalah. It's not, and so if you're dealing with Hebrew, I don't even like calling it mysticism. I don't like calling it mysticism or voodoo or vodum or whatever people want to call it. I don't like calling it that, because our culture has its own way of doing things. We have our own science. We have our own math. We have our own thing. And in the scriptures, it's all throughout the scriptures. So ignorance to your own culture and ignorance to other cultures will only lead you to sound like a Bible thumping Christian, because that's who says those things. People that don't know about culture are going to say that's mysticism. They're going to say those things when they don't know about it. I can tell the difference between mysticism and culture. I could tell the difference. And so that's why I'm, readily available to talk about it, because ignorance is why people want to shy away from it and start labeling it. So what we just have to do is learn the truth. We just have to learn the truth about what it really is. The Mighty Hebrew has a whole curriculum about things that you probably never heard of, for the masses that you never heard of. And I don't shy away from what he's talking about, because it's coming from our people. I'd rather learn about our people before I learn about somebody else. And that's how we should approach it. We should approach it with an open mind. We should approach it with, where's the truth at? Because it's the truth that's going to work. That's what's going to work, the truth. And if somebody's going to utilize the truth, we need to just arrange it to where it's serving our purposes. The Most High wants us to work with the truth. He doesn't want us to follow after Christianity and mysticism in Christianity and start calling on a false god. That's where the problems arise. It's the problems is following after idolatry, after the sense of your enemies. They want you to actually do foolishness while they sitting up there making they're sitting up there making plasma heated to 332 million degrees, and then they're gonna call what you're doing mysticism, even though they don't use numbers and science and order and position and all of these things that we talk about. But when we talk about it, it's mysticism. But when they go ahead and make things hover above ground and heat something to 350 million degrees and bring and tell you that they just figured out the quantum entanglement and they just sent light from one quantum realm to another quantum realm and the quantum entanglement, and then you call what we doing mysticism and what they're doing is science, but we've been doing that. So I just think that our people need to get more knowledge.
Also, I would like to say, to add to that, one of the things that I developed was Hebrew Israelite sovereign nationalism. And the reason why I developed that because I felt amongst the Israelites and even the Black conscious community, they was leaning towards things that were abstract versus concrete. And one of the reasons why I will always use the Mona as a model, because what they did was they embodied the Torah to becoming a living organism of it. And me being in Africa, I noticed that cultures are expressed through action. In the United States, we have a tendency of being very abstract. You know what I'm saying? Like, we'll be like, we were kings and queens. We used to be this, we used to be that. What I'm saying, we got to deal with faith now that's practical in approach. How do we develop government? Easy. It's something that Prince Amiel bin Israel said to me years ago, over 25 years ago. He said, you know, you don't have to reinvent the wheel. And he will always say this to me. He said, you just got to make it stronger. Just make the wheel stronger. And what he meant is we can look and see by manifesting the application of Torah Constitution and through as a constitution to develop a body politic, it becomes simple. It's a labyrinth to those that don't know. But to us that's on this panel, it's very simple. If I go to the Mona right now, and I'm using them because they are those that left from the confines of the United States and went and built, and we can see the edifice of it. So there was something that you said, Moray, we have to deal with works. So I'm like, okay. So if we're over here in the United States talking about, yeah, you know, we gotta give birth to our own children and develop our own medical centers and hospitals. And then I go to the Mona, they got that. Then I say, we over here in the United States talking about we gotta manufacture our own clothes, right? Manufacture Pampers for our babies. Then I go over there, they got that. We got to grow our own food. We got to build our own houses. We got to have our own. We got to do all these things. We got to create a governmental structure, a theocratic or correctly, Yahcratic structure. Then I go over there, they got these things. So I'm saying, even if a person don't want to fully take that, there's a learning experience that if you leave from the confines of North America and attach yourself to a culture, that culture has land, that culture has language, that culture has heritage, it has all these things. See, the Hebrew culture already has these things. We just got to connect to that.
And let
So if these things are already being done, then everything else becomes what I would call academic gymnastics, so to speak.
right.
Like that, like we can have the knowledge of that. But when we talk about setting up a government, we gotta look and see how did they get from point A to B and now they C, versus we just still at A. You know what I mean? And it's something that I use. I was using mathematics and I got it because I'm not going to take it as my own. Prince Emmanuel Ben Yehuda said, when you first came into the culture, you learn how to count a certain way from 0 to 9 or from 1 to 10. And as you develop mathematically, your understanding of math, it broadens. Now you're adding, subtracting, doing divisions, decimals, algebra 1, 2, 3, a calculus, trigonometry, logarithm. The matrix of mathematics is a labyrinth, but it's simple. When we first start learning the Hebrew culture, We learned the basis. You know, yeah, we Israel, Babylon, the Timbuktu, the Apocrypha, the King James Version of the Bible, basic stuff. But as we developed, we went from understanding it from a religio perspective now to a sovereign nationalistic perspective. We have moved from the religiosity of this idea of being Israel versus being the direct descendants of Abraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov. And now we're making physical exoduses from out of the land of the great captivity, now back into the promised land and building. So I think we're all of, whether you Israelite, you into Ephah, you into Kemet, Nation Gods and Herbs, Nation of Islam, whatever. We need to go and see what them brothers and sisters in the, what you know, that's the community I'm a part of. What we need to do is go over there and see how is it that they're functioning? What is causing them to function like this? And when we see what they're doing, it's returning back to that Torah. Because remember, the curse was put upon us because we started to follow the other people's culture. It'd be just like the United States. If the United States stopped just upholding the Constitution to its fullness, even though we know they don't fully follow it, but if they just, the Bill of Rights, the Constitution, what will happen? They'll be a prey to the other nations if they start adopting ways of the other nations. So it wasn't just European cultures and customs that we start following. Remember, we were adopting other African cultures and Asiatic cultures that weren't our culture.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So we have to be mindful that the enemy is just not the so-called white man, but it's the nations that surround us, whether if it was African, Asiatic, European, whatever the case may be. We have to now take a step out and say, let's go over there and try that and see what happens. And I'm telling you, that right there is the key, because we can see, what's that verse, Moray, where it says something, a living person is better than a dead dog. So if
living dog is better than a dead lion.
Yeah, a living dog is better than a dead lion.
When you talk about,
no, let me just finish this last part. A living dog is better than a dead lion. We have to now, we're a nation of people. Now, people's religious and spiritual views, okay, but nationalism, that's the key. Nationalism. So when we go over there to the Mona, they have something that they don't have in the United States. Whatever they practicing over there, the Black conscious community, they don't have what them brothers and sisters got over there in the Mona. So now we need to go examine that from a social anthropological perspective and see what are they doing socially that we're not doing in the States. That's all I wanted to say. Go ahead, DJ Jenna.
So the only problem I have is when you try to say that the Africans had their thing and it went against the things over here versus over there, and we can't be taking on their customs. Bottom line is that the African customs are the same customs. That's the thing, is that you believe that there's a separation between the customs. When it really comes down to it, it's like, okay, so when you okay, you live in Tanzania. Tanzania is one of the like most spiritual hubs of Africa, like the biggest spiritual hub in Africa. The work that's done there, when you do it there, it is hell of like strong. You know what I'm saying? Compared to other places, right? Because all like the energy points in that area. So I don't understand why you would be in a place like Tanzania and then try to make it seem like that what they've been doing has been wrong the whole time, and then you guys got to come here and show them the right way. But the bottom line is that why not actually respect their point of view and then you have your point of view, and then you guys come together. Why should it be a thing where you feel like you need to teach them, and they've been around way longer than everything that you've ever known?
That's it. Is that that's
Can
a
I
good
say?
now that's a, I just want to say this one thing, you can go more right. That is a good statement and a question. Let me clarify it so it'll be clear to everybody. When I'm talking about African nations, first of all, that term African is a misnomer. So what I'm going to say is there were melanated people in Africa in ancient times that were our enemies, straight up. That like you might have had different tribes that believed in different things that did not align with what we was dealing with. Now, when you start talking about Tanzania, we talk about 125 tribes in Tanzania, East Africa. 86% of the tribes in Tanzania are Shemitic in origin. So most of the tribes in Tanzania are from the northern kingdom of ancient Israel. That's why when you come to Tanzania, you're seeing these Israelites that already been here way before I got here. But even though it's not originally their homeland, they were exiled into these areas. So I'm not saying that all quote unquote African cultures and customs are wrong. But if we speaking historically, before Europeans even came matter of fact, before they even existed on the planet, there was nations of melanated skin that were fighting other melanated nations that had, you might have customs where some people worship Dogon. Then you might have some that worship Moloch. You had different nations that dealt with different customs that were grotesque to the natural order. We in the United States have a
Grotesque
tendency
is
of,
a really crazy word. Grotesque.
yeah,
Grotesque. I'm gonna
let me
say
just finish.
okay.
Let me just finish. What I'm saying to you, DJ Genesis, is very simple. When I'm saying grotesque, if you look at, for instance, the Jebusites, I use them as an example. They were known for sacrificing their children to the fires of Moloch. This is a historical fact. That's what I mean by grotesque customs. Everything that was done in Africa was not right. So we got to get out of this mind state thinking just because they're dark nations that they was aligned. Because if they were in line, how were they able to let these cave dwellers come in and destroy the whole entire continent? What I'm saying is that before Europeans came in and dominated Africa, the nations that were in Africa, many of them became wicked amongst themselves. You know what I mean? Enslaving each other, sacrificing their children to different power. These are historical facts that we as a people have to realize. And all dark-skinned people are not the same. Just because they dark-skinned, that don't mean they us. So the only ones that I'm concerned with are the Bantu-speaking tribes in Africa. That's our people, like the Yoruba, the Akan, the Igbo, the Chaga, the Nayumbo people, the Lumba, the Falasha, them type of tribes, them Bantu speaking tribes, they are people. But when you talk about your Chadic tribes, your Noahic tribe, your Cushitic tribe, they're not our people. Even though they're dark-skinned nations, they got totally different customs from the people of West Africa. I'm not talking about all dark-skinned
Because I
people in
was
Africa.
gonna say is that like even in Israel there was a time, when Abraham was like God instructed him to sacrifice his child, and Abraham, the whole thing with the altar and the angel and the Lord stops him, ram is slaughtered.
Yeah,
There's an exact same story about Olokun where it was instructed like they were giving him the child sacrifices, but Olodumare told Olokun, no, that's not cool. The people said we don't want to do this anymore, and it's the same
right.
exact story, but it's like a different take on it. You know what I'm saying? So what happens, I believe, is that when you go into these different tribes, right, they have the same story, but like a different spin on it. You know what I'm saying? To where they all
Not
probably
all,
had like
not
certain
all dark people.
sacrifices. So you're saying
Right.
that
Yeah, I agree with you with our people. When you start talking about the Yoruba, Ifa, that's our people. But there are tribes that are not our people. That's dark skinned nations that's not us. That's all I'm saying. When you identify with the Ephah and all that, remember they're Israelites. Even though as years pass, there might be different views because of migrations and amalgamation and what they would call diffusionism, but they're still Shemitic people. Versus the children of Ham, they're not our people. And there are even those that may not be descendants of Ham that are not our people. But the more you want to say something?
Yeah, I wanted to say, off of what you all are speaking about, and if I can remember what the sister was, she was asking why, to disregard, I guess, the cultures that are older that came before us. Why do we have to teach them the right way? And also addressing what you're saying, Prince, the Most High, he said in the book of Isaiah, in the 43rd chapter, around the 9th verse, he said, let all the nations be gathered together and let them bring their witnesses and let them declare this thing if it is truth. And he said, so what I'm saying is, and he also said that we, the children of Israel, are his witnesses. So it doesn't have to be a situation where we have to teach everyone the right way. But the truth of the matter is, I'm saying we should bring everybody's witnesses. If we're going to gather ourselves together, we have to bring everybody's witnesses from every tribe and from every corner. Bring your witnesses and let the truth prevail. That's all we got to do, is let the truth prevail. Because I saw the sister mention that they've had cultures in West Africa, the Yoruba, the Igbo. They've been had communities. They haven't disappeared after the slave trade. But one thing that's happened to all of us is that we've been colonized, we've been enslaved, we've been oppressed, and we've been fragmented because of the oppressors and the enemies that have done it. So the reason why the Igbo don't talk to the Hebrew, same people, the reason why the Igbo don't talk to the Asante, and the Asante don't talk to the Yoruba, and the African American don't talk to the Tanzanian, is because we've been colonized and we've been set against each other. So instead of identifying in the fragments that our enemies placed upon us, I'm saying let's just come together, bring all of that to the table. And if we brought all of that to the table, the truth would prevail. We would see how in common we are, and the truth would prevail. And I think it's a good example that you used about the Monists. And it's an example of a people that decided to exercise the Torah instead of talk about it. And that's what we should be doing. We should exercise the laws of the Most High instead of just talking about them. The Creator also said in the book of Isaiah, the 19th chapter, that when he brings an end to all this foolishness, the children of Kemet, as people call them, but in the Creator calls them Yisra'el, the children of Mizraim, the children of Ashur, which people would call the Assyrians, and the children of Israel will be together. They're going to be together. And if people don't know who the Assyrians are, who do you think put together the Gilgamesh? Where do you think that comes from? Where do you think all of these so-called religious thoughts about pantheons and things, where do you think that come from? That come from the Assyrians. Where do you think Egypt got it from? That where do you think the West Africans got their pantheons from? They all come from the same place. And what the Christian world would call a pantheon in Africa, and what a Hebrew that's been Christianized would call a pantheon amongst the Orishas, is no different than we seeing Joshua kneel to the chief prince Michael when he came to fight for the people. We had angels we kneeled to. So I'm saying we don't realize how we've applied our oppressors' ideology to our own ways of life. And so we need to, that's why we need to gather ourselves together so we can iron out those differences. I know what the truth is, but just because I know what the truth is doesn't mean I shouldn't hear what you got to say. Because at the end of the day, you're going to agree with the truth if you really want the truth. Hallelujah.
All right, so we do have a question from the audience. Why are we looking backwards when we live in the present?
Sankofa.
You want to answer that phone call, right?
Was that?
You want to tackle that? I mean, you said
Sankofa. That's why I said Sankofa. Because you can't go forward without knowing where you came from. That's ancient African wisdom.
Facts. And when you say Sankofa in the Hebrew, it's tazuvu. You're reverting back, and in the culture, when you moving back, you're going forward at the same time. So it's like a ping pong, so to say. And to say that is, if you don't know who you are, how you know where you at and where you're going to be in the future. So it's very important for us to go back so we can find out exactly who we are. Because if you notice, out of all people on the planet, we are the only ones that don't identify with a flag, demarcation stations, a nation. This is why I keep stressing the community in Demona, because it's showing us like that's a culture. The way they dress, the way they dance, the way they walk, the way they talk, everything is it's a culture. It's a living, breathing flesh and blood, not a straw man. It's a culture that we can see. Everybody got culture. So when the Moray was saying, and you brought up the scripture, how these nations need to come together and bring their witnesses. And that's my witness. And that's deep that you said that. Everybody gotta bring their witnesses. So bang, I'm bringing in Hebrew Israelite sovereign nationalism. Bang, this is what we can do. It's already being done. So now what do we do? You see what I'm saying? We done went from nationalism, and I'm only quoting what Prince Asiel said before he passed away. He said we went from nationalism to civilization. We went from revolutionists to evolutionists, not Darwin's theory, but evolved in a sense of mentally from one state to another. Now it's time now to manifest this application of what we know, because we've been abstracting ideas. Like, we have good ideas. And one thing Prince Asiel told me before he died, he said, grandson, don't debate. This is what you tell them. And I'm going to tell everybody that's watching. 5 years. And I said this on Sinetta, House of Consciousness. I forgot. I was debating polite. And I said, okay, what you do, you saying what you have is the truth. I'm saying what I have is the truth. So what we do is, I give you 5 years, you give me 5 years. Build off of what you're saying is true. I'll build off what I'm saying is true. We come back 5 years from now and we present it on the table and we see what works practically for us. And that right there, we have to go back, go deal with what's practical, not abstract no more. So That's deep with you and DJ Genesis. So I have to make that clear. We're not talking about, just Africa in general, but I'm talking historically before Europeans enslaved us. There were African tribes that enslaved us. You had the Babylonians, you had the people of Kemet, you had the Assyrians, you had the Medo Persians, you had the Arabs, you had the Ottoman Turks, you had different tribes and nations that enslaved us. But I'm gonna let DJ Genesis come with her thing, and then the more he has to close out. So we're gonna I'm gonna pass it to the host of the show, and then you can have the last words, more right?
All right. Scam Chen is an atheist. He says, I don't live day by day from a book. My reality is what I observe. So let me break this down. So I'm gonna say this. I I believe in Demona. You know, the only problem with Demona is it's still on a land that is owned by Israel. You know what I'm saying? That's the only part. I'm like, okay, like, is it really completely separate from Israel, or is it just like a land that you're allowed to have? You know what I'm saying? Just like in Ethiopia, the people that went to what's it called Shashamani, right? You know what I'm saying? So they have that. And at any point, they can say, you know what? No, y'all gotta go home. So I get it. Same thing in America, right? So we have people that was able to get like sovereign land. You have Oyotunji village in South Carolina that's on like they have a lordial title, right?
I've been
So
out
that's
there before.
great.
Yeah.
So it's not just a matter of like, so Demona is not the only place that's like trying to do the same thing. People are doing it all over, right? The issue I'm having is that we're so like caught up in like just like well, back in the earth, the Ottoman Turks and the da 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 da, that we're missing the esoteric aspect of things that is really what society is really based on. Because why do you think Elon Musk is going to Jupiter? You know what I'm saying? You think he's talking about the past and who's running stuff? Elon Musk is not bound by that. Okay, Elon Musk is bound by whatever the hell it is that is telling him that he wants to create a
Right.
colony on a whole nother planet, and he is doing everything
Right.
he can to become wealthy
Right.
enough to do what he's gonna do. He's creating AI.
Right.
Now, AI is another scientific esoteric thing. We're we're so stuck in just basic survival and creating a community that we don't have. Where's our Elon Musk that's saying, you know what, we need to create a car, we need to like.
They got scientists in Demona. You do know that, right?
But okay, so which one is Elon Musk? I want to talk to him. Which one is your Elon Musk that's saying, you know what, I created a car right here. Okay,
Let me tell you something.
so did he make a
Yeah.
car and he did that, and now
Yeah,
people are driving
they
that car,
actually,
and now he's creating rockets going up into space and doing all that?
yeah,
That's what I need to talk to, because
yeah.
does he have
Let me
AI
say
like
this
the
before.
AI mechanism, breaking down mathematics to a point
Yeah.
using African actual like understanding of like systems to really take it to a next level? Because it's one thing to just say, okay, well, we just have a society over here and we're eating vegetation and everybody's getting old, but then hell, the way that Elon Musk is going, he's like, man, we need to get up off Earth and go over to like Jupiter somewhere.
Let me
I know that, but that's why.
But
Go
no,
ahead,
but
more right.
okay, go ahead.
let me
Go ahead,
say
more
this.
right.
The creator never wanted us to be like other people, but nevertheless, um, Elon Musk and looking forward and all of this is all well and good. Nevertheless, the Most High, he's more powerful than that, and his ways are more powerful than that. Elon Musk isn't doing nothing that's already been done. There's no idea that's original, and there's no new thing under the sun. He's not doing something that hasn't already been done. When Moses went before the Pharaoh, they and turned the water to blood and turned the staff into a serpent. His scientists, magicians, they did the same thing. It's not that people cannot make innovations and do things that seem to be awe-inspiring. It's, can we be a righteous people, a people? Elon Musk might go to another planet, but he supports mass murderers. He supports oppressors. So it's not just about how great your inventions are and how advanced your society is. Can we advance society? Can we be good people and advance society without harvesting fetal tissue and put them in McDonald's burgers? Because these are the things that they support. And we have to take the things that we're about and we have to use them in the way that not just society is acceptable, that's acceptable for the complete environment that you're living in. That's why you have to look at the ways of the Creator. You have to look at the ways of the indigenous people of the earth, because we don't want to destroy our home. The only reason people like Elon Musk want to go other way because they're destroying their home. We don't want to destroy our home. The Almighty has a perfect way and a perfect thing, and it's in His ways. And the book of the Creator is not a religious book. That's what the Mighty Hebrew is talking about. We need to step out of the religiosity, the religiousness of all of this, and make practical applications about what's going on in your world and in your life. In the ways of the Creator, if we did actually apply the ways of the Creator, we would be the most advanced people in the earth. And Elon Musk stole all his stuff from black people in Africa anyway. There's a man in Africa right now doing things that they want to kill him about. But he done took it from them. But we need to understand that the ways of the Most High are so superior, but we keep on getting caught up in this religious aspect and this division, this division, and my faith is better than your faith, and that's ridiculous. Because the bottom line is, the Creator is the truth. Yah is the truth. And if you take His ways and you apply them to your life, you'll see that it's the truth. I don't care if you do it from reading a book or if you do it from watching somebody. I don't care how you come across it. The Creator's ways are the truth, and we need to apply that to our lives. That's why I'm saying, to the question you asked earlier, we need to gather ourselves together. I'm not afraid to come together with the African spiritualists, with the Black conscious. I'm not afraid of that. But are you afraid of that? Are you afraid to talk about the word of the Creator? And if you are, maybe your ways aren't too strong.
Well, honestly, I'm not afraid. That's why I'm
not saying you particular sister. I'm saying the people that might not be. You understand? I'm saying, because I'm saying, because you're on here talking with us, I'm saying I want to talk about all of it. Let's deal with all of it. That's what I'm saying. Let's not shy away from it. Let's deal with all of it. Let me see if you doing what you're doing at the time you're doing that way. Let's see if it's going to allow us to overcome our oppressors, to overcome our dysfunctions. That's what I'm saying.
So what happens when the oppressor is no longer a human being, but like a robot? Or
the AI. Creator, that's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying about the ways of the Most High. I don't care if you're a robot. I don't care if you're a 20,000 alien from Jupiter. The ways of the Most High are stronger than all of that. And all we need to do is deal with the ways of the Most High. We can deal with all of that. I'm saying that we can deal with all of that. Robot, Android, AI, neuroscience, all of these type of things. It doesn't matter. Right. You understand? The scientists, let me leave you with this one thing. A scientist is out there teaching people the periodic table of elements, right? And they're telling them that the atomic mass of oxygen is there's 8 atoms in oxygen. That's what they say, right? There's 8 atoms in oxygen. There's 8 atoms in oxygen. That's its atomic mass. That's what it says. But when you go into the Book of the Most High, did you know that the Book of the Most High lets you know that the number that you call 8 represents His love? The 8th book is the book of Ruth. It means friend. It means love. The 8th day we circumcise our children because of the Most High's love. On the 8th chapter, the 22nd verse of Genesis, he said he'll never destroy the earth because he loves us. David, the king, his servant, his Messiah is the 8th born because of love. And then the atomic mass of oxygen is number 8. And who gave us the life breath? The Most High gave us the life breath. And he gave us this life breath, and the scientists decided to say that it had the atomic mass of 8 when we knew that the Most High loved us. There's a lot of power in the word of the Most High, and it goes and it spans science. It spans divination. It spans the numbering and ordering. It spans all of these things. It spans it all. But if we don't know the ways of the Most High, then we're going to be afraid of him. And that's all I'm saying. I can go for on and on, but I do have to.
More right.
I
More
praise
right.
God.
You're a funny dude, more right. I just want to say this to make this clear. We can't remember, we only been back in the land for 58 years. And and I'm only telling you what sociologists say. Sociologists compared us to the conditions of Black Americans. And they say out of their mouth, there's a book by a sociologist by the name of Paul Hare. He wrote a book called The Hebrew Israelite Community. He's a sociologist that come out of Temple University. And he said out of his own mouth that we progress over 200 years further in development than Black America. Now, Israel that we see today is only a part of our land. Now, yeah, you got the Europeans in there, but everything is aligned prophetically as we understand to happen that the way it happened. Okay, as a marker for us to return back to that land. We are in that land because we supposed to be in that land. That's why we're there. And when we look at South, I've been down South Carolina to that community. I went to Edenton, Georgia, when Dr. York had his whole joint. It's not comparable, and I'm just dealing with facts. That's two different things. When you look at Demona, it's a city. It's a city. You see what I'm saying? Whereas though they created something called, when we talk in science and agriculture, they created something that's now agriculturalists are using worldwide. They developed something called the dripping system. And within the dripping system, they produce 4 times more to produce than the average agriculturalist. That come out of Demona. The cotton, the fabric that they use in Demona for their garments, it's a cotton that they developed in Demona, and it's patent. I'm just using this out of many things that they've done over there. When you go, it's not the same. It's not the same. When you go there, they got their own schools, they got their own hospitals, they got their own factories, they got their own police, they got their own. It's different. It's not comparable. So when we say, it's a difference from, you go to a situation, yeah, you have a feel-good moment, versus this is the condition of how they live over there 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. When you go to northern Israel, like Tel Aviv, you'll see the Israeli lifestyle is multicultural. When you go south into the Negev and you start seeing these Black populations, it's a whole nother different ball game. It's not like you just going there and it's just a couple. We're talking about thousands of people. Right. You know what I'm saying? Live in this situation that we see. So we can't just say, well, the Shashamani community in Ethiopia, they're doing the same thing that they're doing in them. No, they're not. When you look at what they're doing in South Carolina, no, they're not. It's on a whole nother different, it's a whole different level. And I feel as though the reason why is because when you step your feet on that soil, I've been to Israel 6 times. I'm going back in May for my 7th time. When you step your feet on that, so you know that's your land. You know that's your land. Even though you got Europeans that invaded, but when you step on that soil, you can feel the energy. You can feel the energy going through your body. And the further south you go, and you start seeing your own people, I'm not talking about a little small community, I'm talking about a city. And
Yeah.
everywhere you go is black people. It's a whole nother different spiritual energy. And that has to be, and we gotta take that because that's all we got in the sense of seeing a physical edifice
But
that we
hold on,
can act.
here's the question. You're in Tanzania. You're in an
Yes,
African like land. So you're
but you
saying
got.
that
I'm in Tanzania because people got to understand this is one of the.
are they all living in mud huts over there, or are they like got buildings and civilization?
That. So it'll be clear, so everybody will know. Damona is the central base. So with the community that I'm a part of, we have satellite communities throughout Africa. So you got the Kingdom of Yah jurisdiction in Ghana. I run the Kingdom of Yah jurisdiction in Tanzania. Then you got the Kingdom of Yah jurisdiction in Nigeria, Ethiopia. You got all these different jurisdictions, but they're all controlled by the central base in Damona. It's all the same community because there's so
Right.
many
What I'm
of us.
saying is that in Tanzania, in Nigeria, in Congo, wherever you guys are like located, I mean, is it just mud huts, or do they have a city? Do they have like electricity? Do they have anything?
I mean, yeah, but there's nothing like Damona. I'm telling you, I've been all over Africa. There's no community like Damona. I've
Okay,
been
so
there. When I
but
say
okay,
yes,
all right, so
you have, hold on, so to be clear. Yes, you have modern countries
technology, right?
and Africa, but listen, but they're imitating European structures. Because you got to remember, a lot of these Europeans, they were colonists. And when a lot of these African societies won their independence, they still kept the European structures up and their governmental functions. Whereas though in our community, the Kingdom of Law in Damona, it's our own structure. We built it from scratch. Whereas though these, like in Tanzania, Dar es Salaam, that was named after an East Indian prince because the East Indians once controlled Tanzania. You had different imperial powers that ran Tanzania. You had the Germans, you had different people, you had the Irish, you had different people at different periods of time that ran Tanzania. So once again, so everybody to understand, the
So
community that
here's a question. So Damona itself is separate from Israel.
it's a part of, naturally is a part of the land of Israel. But the kingdom of Yah that is in Damona, it's separated. Yes, yes,
Right.
it's separated. It is
So
owned by the government.
ownership wise, like you guys are not at all because here's the question because
Yes, naturally we're
you
connected.
you
Naturally
said
we're connected to it,
well hold
but
on,
it's a process.
he spoke to the
This is what I'm
prince
saying.
that he said that even the people in Damona have to actually like be in the military and all
I
that are part of
know,
like
guess what? I have no problem with that. Everything is a progress.
right.
Excuse me, a process.
So here's
So
the thing is
hold on,
that
let me just say this.
connects
So you know
to
what's
the
going.
government of Israel. So it's not really your own government because you have
Guess
your
what?
own
It's a
military
process. It's a,
separate from the
I
main
know, I
military
know.
of Israel.
Yeah, I heard these arguments before. My whole point that I'm saying is 58 years, the progress is phenomenal. It's phenomenal. Like it's not a thing. When you go to the United States, we don't have shit in the United States. So when you go to Damona, it's different. It's different. Naturally, listen, okay, we live in Damona, hypothetically. You got Iran over here, right?
Uh-huh.
Naturally, if they're coming into the country to war, naturally, I'm going to fight back. That's natural. And furthermore, I would rather rumble in my own land than rumble in a foreign land, regardless of who's lose in imperial power at the moment, we're in our land. It's like the story of King David and Saul. Saul was king. Objectively, he was king. But subjectively, David was king. So for 16 years, King Saul ran David down. And we see that Samuel already anointed David to be king. So objectively, you're seeing the imperial power of the so-called Israeli government. So in your mind, oh, they're not. There's a process to this thing. And what I'm saying, 58 years, we done leap far beyond what we've been fighting for in the United States. We're still stuck in the United, even though I don't live in the United States no more, but I'm speaking collectively as a body politic. We're still choosing two of the lesser evils in the United States. We're still talking about we need this, we need that. In the morning, they're not saying we need this, we need that. They're saying we got this, we got that. So if you're talking 58 years, imagine 100 years, 150 years, and on and on and on and on. The power of the enemy, the armor is going to crack and then break. So we need to be there so the rightful heirs can take full control of that land. So it's destiny that we are in that land right now. So this is not a small thing that we're in our land. And we know that Israel is bigger than just that piece of real estate. That's only a part of the land of Israel. The ancient demarcation stations with Syria, Palestine, Lebanon, and what you call Israel. That all consisted of the land of Israel. The land of the promise now was from East Africa, which is starting at Lake Victoria in Uganda, with the Nile, 4,200 miles to the Euphrates, northeastern Africa, falsely called the Middle East. So from East Africa to northeastern Africa or the Middle East, all that land is ours. All that is ours. That's our demarcation stations that is outlined in Bereshit or Genesis chapter 15, verses 13 to 18. After that 400 years, 1619, 2019, we seen what happened. We seen the death of George Floyd. We seen the COVID. We seen all this toxic stuff going on in the United States. And then you're starting to see a second wave or mass exodus of Israelites returning back to the land. This is not a coincidence that you're seeing this awakening of Israel all over the globe. That we will be scattered amongst all these nations all over the globe. And now you're seeing this. So this is not no small thing. We can't compare an international nationalistic movement that's global to something isolated in a state somewhere. That's two different things. That's how we know that we the Israelites, because you got Israelites waking up in the UK, Japan, Africa, Asia, the Caribbean islands, America, all over the world that we've been scattered at. You seeing these Israelites rise and leaving from the confinements of their captivity and returning back to the land. That's something right there that's more than just a coincidence. This is a phenomenon in the hand of the power of Abraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov coming back into our remembrance to leave from these wicked people. We have to separate from these people and build. And that's why I have so much, respect for that Pacific community right there. That right there, that's why you gotta go. And as a matter of fact, I don't know if you know, Sister Genesis, but shout out to Princess Dina. I see that you're here. And Princess Dina is one of the princesses in our community who was appointed a princess by the late Prince Ishyah being Yisra'el. She's in the audience. Now, seeing that you put some of her comments up, you see Dina. That's her. So I want to give a shout out to Princess Dina. I'm glad that you came through. But it was an honor definitely to have Moray Ishyah come on, and he like he said, we need to bring orders to the table. but we also got to deal with things that are practical. And if that community can help us to bring a practical understanding, that we need to use that community. We need to use that community and see how did they get from here to there. We can't ignore that no more. That community has to be front and center to the forefront now, because there's nothing else like it amongst Black Americans. That left from even Marcus Garvey didn't even do that. So
So
we got to
here's the
now.
question though. So here's the question. So you know what? I agree with everything you're saying, right? How do you bring and round up the Hebrew Israelites that are like on the corner, like thinking there's gonna be a world war and they're gonna like get like a kill the virgins and all kind of weird stuff? What happens in that case? Like so, because I know that the Mona Israelites are not talking about the same stuff, but then you got those ones on the corner like screaming you're a slut to women and all type of wild stuff and fighting women
They
and doing.
die. They be all right. The prophecy tell us that 2/3 of our people going to be destroyed. So that even means those that may say that the Israelites, they may be destroyed for the lack of knowledge. So all that socially going to be corrected as we build. See, it's not really a thing no more. We got to debate. Only thing we got to do is build. See, our application of the knowledge that we have is going to destroy as we build. And remember the nation gods and earth talk about, and the supreme mathematics, number 8 is build and destroy. And that's a true statement that they're saying. As those that of the 1/3 of Israel's building, the 2/3 of Israel going to be destroyed. So you don't really have to sit back and go back and forth. All we got to do is just build. And those that are not building and they just talking with abstract thoughts, that abstract thought without the physical application is going to self-destruct. So when they on them street corners doing it, and I'm not saying they don't have their purpose, because they do, because sometimes you need them on that street corner to spark the mind. Because you may have individuals, like when I first came into the truth, my mind was sparked from, even though my great grandmother was a Hebrew Pentecostal, and I always knew that I was a Hebrew, but it really wasn't like resonating in me. But when I seen the brothers on the street corner, it was like, even though I didn't stop right there, but I seen it. So they serve their purpose. You know what I'm saying? But if their purpose doesn't heighten itself to the level and development of now establishing sovereign nationalism, from sovereign nationalism into a civilization, they're going to crumble with the wicked nations of the earth who's being wicked. Remember, all these nations have to suffer their karma. So United States have to feel the pressure of destruction before that soil becomes better. Once again, they have to, just like you don't have Egypt no more, just like you don't have Babylon no more, because they became wicked. And the United States and the social fabric of the United States has become so wicked and grotesque that they have to now face judgment. And whoever is sitting in that seat of judgment over there in the United States, they're going to be destroyed. This is why we as a people that know the truth, hear the truth, and speak the truth, it's time to come from up out of her. You have to come from out of that land, because judgment is coming. And y'all can sit up here, and I'm not saying you, DJ Jennings, I'm saying people that got this fixation that the United States is just going to always be there. Anybody that know the sign of the time, and I'm not talking about the end of the world, I'm talking about a civilization. Western liberal democracy has to fold up like a pretzel. They have to be judged. And anybody that's sitting over there trying to protect the United States, they're going to be destroyed right with the United States. And the only reason why the United States ain't fully destroyed yet, because of the mercy seat of Yah Yisra'el, because amongst our people, there are still remnants of the 1/3 that got to come from up out of her. So all y'all that's listening to me, come from up out of that wicked seed over there. Because if you stay over there, you're going to be destroyed. You're going to be destroyed. Trying to save the United States. You can't save a rapist, a pedophile, a child molester, a robber, a thief, a murderer of civilization and culture, history, the destruction of millions upon millions of the indigenous inhabitants of that land, bringing people over from the continent, destroying them, taking their language, taking their culture, taking their history, and you think you're not going to be judged, destroying the ozone layer, feeding the people poison, and doing all this wickedness and think they're not going to be destroyed. Destruction is coming to the United States and the Western powers at hand. That's why you see all this madness going on right now. Y'all don't see what's going on? They turning your children to everything that the scripture tell you not to do. They telling you it's okay to do, and y'all accepting it. They got the alphabet kids in the schools. They telling your 7-year-old child that it's okay to be a little girl if he's a boy, or a little girl that it's okay to be a boy, and vice versa. And y'all accept that. So we got to come from up out of that. And that's the thing that the Moray was saying. It's by the way of righteousness that's going to determine who's who. Anybody that's following the ways of the Western world, they're going to fold up. And you see it right now going on. So I'm warning y'all. I'm warning y'all. You better come from at the end of the day, we can dialogue all day, but the reality is we have to come together and self-govern ourselves. So the Mona is the forerunners. It's a process. You understand what I'm saying? It's an experimentation that went very well. And I'm not saying everything is 100% perfect. No, it's not 100% perfect, but it's a process in the growth and development. So as their world is falling, ours is rising. The only way to destroy a civilization, you need another civilization to challenge it. And that's what the Mona is there for, to challenge the world civilizations at hand. Hallelujah. I'm out of here, DJ Genesis. I'm out of here. I'm sleepy.
I know. So, man, this has been a great live. Shouts out.
Yo, this was dope. This was a dope one.
Okay. I was trying to get Fundi Fee to come up here and say her piece, but she didn't do it. So, all right,
It's
Fundi.
cool. Leave it. This was perfect. We ain't even gotta listen. I gotta get me some sleep. It's 3:20 a.m. over here. I gotta get some sleep. I was gonna even go live later, but I'm like, I can't. I
So listen,
can't.
you know what? Later, so let me just tell everybody what's coming up in the week. If you have not subscribed to the channel yet, please do subscribe to the channel. Did you want to come up here real quick and make a statement, Fundi?
One
You
of the
ready?
brothers said something about, he said, some brother just said something about the Mona is not ready for a mass exodus. That's why we got satellite community. This is what I'm trying to. The Mona is just the base. You have satellite. We used to call them extensions. Now we call them jurisdictions. So we have models. Like when you go to the Mona, that's the original model. So if you go to like Accra, Ghana, there's a quote unquote a Demona jurisdiction in Ghana. I'll run the one here in Tanzania. You have different jurisdictions, so naturally we know the Mona won't be able to fit us all. But we know through the demarcation stations from East Africa to the Euphrates, whatever jurisdiction you want to go to, you just go to that Pacific jurisdiction. Like I just put up there. Matter of fact, I inboxed it. I inboxed it to DJ Genesis and in the antediluvian back page. You got the Ghana jurisdiction you can go to. You can go to the South African jurisdiction. But it's all controlled by the main jurisdiction or the capital that sits in Damona. You see what I'm saying? So we have these jurisdictions. So that's basically it. What I tell people is to go, because most people that talk about the more, I'm gonna keep it funky. Most people that I interact with that talk about they never even been there. So it's like it's difficult to speak to people who's not experienced this way of life. Me, I've been in 17 African countries. So when somebody try to tell me there's no Israelites in Africa, I look at them like, huh? When there's been Israelite communities in Africa for thousands of years. And I'm just saying, y'all must not be traveling. Y'all must have listened to somebody that told y'all some lies, because there's so many communities. But I'm gonna pass it to DJ Genesis because she has a list of some up and coming interviews that we're going to be having here on Alchemizing Energy from Darkness to Light. Tell us
All
what we
right.
got going on.
So hold on. So tomorrow we have Mel Smith. He actually went to the Vatican. So he's going to be revealing everything. Huh?
I said,
So he's going to be revealing everything he found out when he went to the Vatican. He's an ex Jehovah Witness, and he went to find out. He's like in his quest to become like a scholar, and he went to the Vatican. He's going to be like revealing some truths about the Vatican. That's going to be tomorrow, and then after that, we have excuse me, we have Master Fundi Fee, who's going to be breaking down Islamic mysticism and the divine feminine. She's going to be talking about the actual like breakdowns of Islam, the divine feminine, and how yeah. So we got like some cookers coming up. Okay, we got like some real great information. Please subscribe, you guys, because yeah, for some reason YouTube is not showing the notification. Please hit all notifications so you can like really get the notification when this stuff comes up. So, and then the next thing is that we have Shar Anel Bay, African spirituality demystified. He's also a sheikh, and a brother in the Moorish Science Temple that is going to be breaking down like African spirituality and demystifying it. So we
is
have
that
like,
Brother Sharif? Is that Sharif?
yeah, that's Brother Sharif. So we got like some good
Oh,
stuff
Chuck.
coming up.
Oh, Chuck. I like Brother Sharif back.
Yeah, we got like some good stuff coming up, and on top of that, I got like some surprises. But please keep checking back, because as I like do these set up these interviews, it's gonna get even more and more interesting, because the whole thing is like, it's not about a debate but the information. I'm trying to like get you guys, you make your own decision, you know what I'm saying, but the information is there to make a decision, you know what I'm saying. So that's what I'm about.
Absolutely.
So
And that's gonna be very. I can't wait for tomorrow to hear the brother that was in the Vatican. I'm definitely gonna be there, and y'all need to tune in for that. You gotta tune in definitely for Sharif Bey and the sister, because she was on before and she was showing the interconnections with Islam and Taoism. Very sharp sister. And like DJ Genesis Detroit said, we got some surprises coming up. We got some surprises, so stay tuned for that. Anything else you want to say before we close out, DJ Genesis?
no, that's pretty much it. Shway, shouts out to Fundi Fee. Let me just give everybody that's been up here and sticking with us this whole time. Thank you, Deanna Thunderbird. Thank you, Fundi Fee. Thank you for being here. Thank you,
Absolutely.
Scam Chan, for being here the whole time. Thank you for like, being here during this live. You know what I'm saying? Because without you, this doesn't even exist. And please like share. Jedi Sage, thank you for coming. Who else was up here? Please start sharing these lives, because everybody else is talking about the Jaguar ride and blah 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 and P Diddy, but we're like not even on that level. We're trying to take you guys to a whole another aspect of knowledge and information, It's not about debating. It's about having conversations and really reaching like an understanding and having like a true discord. So please share the live, subscribe, hit the button, make sure it says all. Shouts out everybody. Thank you for like being here. And that's all I gotta say.
DJ Genesis, take us out of here.
Alchemize your energy. Darling, let your spirit be free. Don't give up, keep on pushing through. Now is the time, it's all up to you. Alchemize your energy, my friend. Let your spirit be free. Don't give up, keep on pushing through. Now is the time, it's all up to you. No matter the storm, but over tragedy. No matter the storm, but over tragedy. No matter the storm, we will always take flight. Keep on pushing through the darkness of night. There's no limit, let's reach for the sky. Shine so bright from darkness to light.